Now, there's been a lot of misinformation circling around in relation to the Lily Sullivan and Jack Sullivan case. There's been a lot of rumours circulating around. Most of those I just ignore, and I make sure that here on my channel I'm reporting factual information, truthful information. But there's this one thing that's circulating at the moment that seems to have grown legs. And like I said, normally I would ignore all this stuff and just, if someone comments about one of these rumours or any of these things in my videos, I usually just offer a correction then and there. But this one has got me kind of ticked off because it is so clearly fake and it is giving people false hope. So that is the Derwood Grady or Darren Geddes, or maybe it's Ronnie back for another go. If you followed the Kylie Rodney case, you know what I'm talking about. So this is an individual who already we've been given two names for. The claim is that, well, he came forward as Derwood O'Grady. And then claims were made that actually no, that's a fake name that he gave and his real name is Darren Geddes. And this guy is supposedly an insider and knows what happened to Jack and Lily. Now, apparently this all surfaced on a channel called It's a Criming Shame. And to be honest, I know nothing about this channel, so I can't talk to her credibility or lack thereof. And quite frankly, whichever video it was that this conversation occurred in, I really have no intention of watching a 4-hour live stream that is just mostly just waffling to try and get to the beginning of this situation. So by all means, recommend which video it is, give me timestamps and I will take a look at it. But I think it's been reproduced on so many channels now that I probably don't need to. Like I said, I know nothing about this It's a Criming Shame channel, so I don't know if this is someone who is grifting or if this is just someone who's a little bit naive and allowed herself to be taken advantage of. I am more than open for that content creator to contact me privately if she wishes to discuss this. But I wanted to address this today in this video because, like I said, it's bad enough when there's false information being put out there, but when that false information is giving people false hope, that's just really low, in my opinion. Now, when information like this does pop up, I never just completely disregard it without looking into it. I always do a bit of research to see if there is possibly some credibility to it. But that does not involve going to the various channels that are sharing this information and claiming it is credible, but looking for primary sources. So the first thing I did was look up both these names on Google. Darren Geddes and Derwood O'Grady, or whatever it was. And neither of them seem to have existed until this video came out. There is no reference to either of them other than in reference to this video and the claims that were made, and then of course to all the spin-off videos. Sometimes that does occur with people. So I thought, okay, well, let's narrow this in a bit. And I decided I'd do a Google search for images this time. So instead of just doing a broad Google search for the name, I switched it across to images. And straight away, alarm bells went off, red flags started flying. Because guess who I found that was all over this supposed individual? Yep, you guessed it. When you do it as a Google image search, what do you get? Joseph Morris, YouTube's biggest grifter. If you are not familiar with Joseph Morris, this is the guy who, during the Gabby Petito case, released a video. In actual fact, he released a few, but after he got caught out on the first one, he pulled the second one pretty quickly. Basically, the video he released was supposedly a video where Brian Laundrie had accidentally gone live on Instagram for a few seconds, and this video showed that he was on a boat. Thankfully, other YouTubers were already on to Joseph Morris, and another YouTuber found the original video, which was several years old and was actually a fishing video, and proved that actually this video wasn't anything to do with Brian Laundrie. Joseph Morris tried again with a video of someone on a walking track. Like I said, things blew up pretty quickly. People were pointing out that he was lying, so he pulled that video pretty quickly and scurried away. Move on to the Kylie Rodney case. And there was a big fuss all of a sudden because a necklace that law enforcement had been asking people to keep an eye out for, and a jumper that law enforcement had been asking people to keep an eye out for, suddenly appeared advertised on Poshmark. And guess who found the advertisement? Guess who ran the videos about this? Yes, it was Joseph Morris. Now, I forgot to mention also that with the Gabby Petito case, in addition to his fake videos, he also doctored real online articles to sell a story. Because that's important here too, I believe. But yep, let's go back to Kylie Rodney. So, Joseph Morris suddenly discovered Kylie Rodney's gold chain and her jumper on Poshmark. That, of course, proved to be false. It was yet another fabrication. Jump forward several months, and we had that horrible crime that occurred in Idaho. The Idaho 4 case. And this was one of the most disgusting things that occurred. Joseph Morris produced a fake audio recording, which he used for clickbait, of course. And this fake audio recording was apparently a recording of one of the girls screaming out as she was being done in, let's say, by the person responsible for all their deaths. This audio started going viral pretty quickly until people discovered that it was actually a complete utter fabrication made up by Joseph Morris. So all of a sudden we have this individual calling into a show called It's a Grinding Shame. And this individual is supposed to be a cousin of Malaya. And this individual has inside knowledge. The thing is, was it a grinding shame who ran with it? No. It was Joseph Morris who took the baton and ran. He's the one who's milking the story. And I can't help thinking that perhaps this is where the origins of the story are. By setting it up with another channel as a call-in, it gives it a little bit more legitimacy. Now, like I said, when you do a Google search for these names, straight up what pops up is Joseph Morris. Now, as for these images of the guy, I can't tell you where they came from, because I did a image search and I couldn't find any other matches. They appear to have originated with Joseph Morris. I was curious also as to who was putting out videos about these individuals. And guess who comes top of the list again in terms of videos? Joseph Morris. Pumping them out on TikTok about this guy. So, straight away, the credibility of this individual, in my eyes, goes down. Because it seems that the reason that this whole thing is being pushed is because it is being pushed hard by Joseph Morris. Anything like this that is unverified, that is being pushed hard by Joseph Morris, straight away gets red flags from me. Because it suggests that he is almost certainly the person behind it in the first place. As you can see, he's pushing it on YouTube as well as on TikTok. Now, like I said, I don't want to give anyone recognition over this, because I have no doubt that it is complete utter BS, and I will explain that shortly. But I am going to play a clip that is this guy talking, to give you some idea of what's going on here.
About 80% sure I know who. There was some people involved with her. They made a bad mistake thinking they were doing something good. And before they realized what happened, things blew up so quick.
Okay, I do want to comment first on what appears to be somewhat of an over-exaggeration of the telephone audio. What do I mean by that? I'm just going to play you a few clips from Grey Hughes, and these are from the Maddie Soto case. A few people who are proven as legitimate, hence the reason I'm using these clips, and they called in to Grey Hughes speaking about when they knew Stephen Stearns. And you can hear there is that sort of tinny sound that you get when you're listening to audio that is directly from a phone. But it is nowhere near as extreme as the audio from this Durwood or Darren or whatever you want to call him, dingbat.
I was being homeschooled at the time, and he was as well. And he was one of the people there, and I clicked with him right away because.
And before they realized what happened, things blew up so quick.
So the first two bits of audio were genuine phone calls from guys who rang into Grey Hughes about Stephen Stearns. The third one was again a clip from this dingbat guy. Now here's the thing. These days with video editing programs, they pretty much all have an AI feature where you can do voice alteration. And of course, one of the options that you can use is to make it sound like someone talking on the phone. And you'll notice that because it is there for effect, it tends to over-exaggerate. So my first question is this even original audio, or did someone record it before making the call in to this grinding shame show or whatever it was, and then play recorded audio? Or did they even use a voice modification tool while they were talking on that show? Because that is another thing that you quite often see from people. I can name at least one person connected with the Kylie Rodney case who quite often spoke on a channel that was by this woman called Megs. And when he rang in, or when he basically connected via StreamYard, he always used voice altering software. Now, honestly, that's neither here nor there anyway, but I just did want to just show people that it is possible to be hoodwinked, especially when someone like Joseph Morris is involved. Now, I want to talk about the story that this guy has shared, because to me it's just a load of BS, and anyone with a few brain cells can apply a bit of logic to this guy's story and realise that it is just that, a whole load of BS. Now, if you watch some of Joseph Morris's videos, he will give additional reassurances, things that he's discovered that show you that this guy is legitimate, which again makes me think that this is a Joseph Morris fabrication, which is of course extremely disturbing. But what are the claims made by this dingbat guy? So, first of all, he claims that the plan was that Malaya was going to make the kids disappear and then she was going to join them later on. But apparently the Mounties moved in so quickly that it all just got out of hand. Well, right then and there, that falls apart immediately. Because her story and Daniel's stories, even though there are serious inconsistencies, the one consistency with their story is that they were together in a room with Meadow that whole morning. So I think we can take that as being somewhat verified information, because the claim is that the reason it all went pear-shaped was because Daniel's mother discovered Malaya down the bottom of the road just after she'd put the kids in the car. This is one of those classic stories where they've basically thought about the things that people are going to question and added additional detail to cover that. Well, why wouldn't she just go? Oh, well, Daniel's mother caught her at it. BS. And I'm going to come back to that. But we have from Malaya and Daniel that they were both in the room with Meadow, supposedly asleep, and supposedly it was Daniel who woke up several times because Lily was sticking her head in the door and Malaya was still asleep. Because, of course, in all these stories, Daniel has to gaslight Malaya. And, of course, according to the stories, it is Malaya who immediately rang authorities when she discovered the children were missing. Now, if you had just taken your kids down to the roadside and offloaded them into a car with someone who was going to hide them for you till you could join them, why would you then be in a hurry to report them missing to the Mounties? You wouldn't. You would stall. So there's that for starters. Let's talk about this idea of there being this other car that the kids were loaded into. The Mounties have so much footage. Lots of trail cams. They have hundreds of hours worth of video footage. And it seems that they definitely do have video footage along that road. So don't you think that they would have identified every single vehicle that was on that road that morning? Of course they would. Had there been a vehicle identified that had been in the vicinity of that property around the time the kids went missing, they would have been onto that pretty damn quick. But there wasn't a vehicle, so they weren't onto it. People seem to think that the Mounties are the Keystone Cops. But honestly, they've got trail cam footage from several days before the kids went missing to several days after the kids went missing. Had there been a vehicle at the property the morning the kids went missing, they would definitely know about it by now. Upon checking trail cam footage and any other footage that showed the road, and we know they have that sort of footage, they would have identified a vehicle. So you can throw that idea out the window straight away. Now, why the heck would Malaya need to sneak the kids away like that in the first place? Use your brains, people. When she split up with Cody, she had a conversation with his mother even before she left, saying, "This isn't working, I'm leaving." There was no, "I'm going to sneak away with the kids." This is a woman who has a very strong support network by the sounds of it. She's currently, as far as we know, staying with her mother, with Meadow, despite the rumours that are around. Her and the children are also part of the native tribe, or one of the native tribes of the area. If she had decided to leave Daniel, why wouldn't she just hop in a car and go? I've heard so many ridiculous reasons for why that wouldn't be the case. But the simple fact is, it would have been pretty damn easy for her to do so. Leave while he's at work. Or have your mother come for a visit, so you've got support, and leave at the same time with your mother. And of course, if you think that the Mounties aren't keeping a really close eye on Daniel and Malaya right now, you're a fool. Sure, neither of them are named as suspects or persons of interest, but you can bet that the Mounties are making sure they know precisely where they are. So that comes to the other part of the story. This guy claims that he was onto it. He's a super sleuth, and he knew what was going on. He knew who the person was in the car that Malaya handed the kids off to. And he knows that that person has got the kids on the reservation, and he's Mr. Super Sleuth, and he wanted to test it out, so he spoke to somebody just to test the theory out. And as soon as he did, Malaya hopped in a car with Meadow and took off, and she's on the run. Seriously, how can anyone believe that bit of BS? What a absolute crock of manure. Like, seriously. It even sounds like some ridiculous fan fiction tale. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is a complete, utter joke. Why didn't this guy just go directly to the Mounties? And, you know, he claims that he's family. But apparently he didn't go directly to family either. Instead, he rings up some random YouTube channel to share this information. Really? Do you really buy that? So, why does this dingbat dude only have 5 friends on either of his fake YouTube accounts? Okay, so slight over-exaggeration, 25 friends. But, you know, that's nothing in the world of Facebook. And the other version of this guy, the Delwood or Durwood or whatever it is, same again. And interestingly enough, the friends you see are pretty much the same on both pages. And why is it that while both this Darren dude and this Delwood or Durwood or whatever he is dude, neither of them have an image of themselves on their page? Neither of them have anything much about themselves on their page. So, where did Joseph Morris get this photo of this Darren, Durwood, Dilbert, Donkey, whatever he is? Because like I said, when you do a Google image search, the picture doesn't come up anywhere else. And why is it that this guy is supposed to have ties with Malaya's family, and yet you don't see any of her family in his friends list on either of these accounts? Now let's talk about Amber Alerts. There's a few claims that have been made here. One is that Malaya took Meadow and disappeared with her. She hopped in the car and ran off. Well, supposedly from these same circle of people, we're supposed to believe that Malaya was in foster care with CPS or whatever they're called in Canada. And then another version I've heard is that she's under supervision with Meadow. So surely if she had just hopped in the car and vanished with Meadow and was on the run, I think we would hear about it from law enforcement. I think there would be an Amber Alert for Meadow, at the very least. But I would imagine that if the mother of 2 missing children suddenly upped and did a runner, then there would definitely be a bolo out for her. And there would be announcements made to the public that they were looking out for her. Let's talk about Amber Alerts for Jack and Lily. Well, the Mounties have made it pretty clear that if any evidence came up of an abduction, that they can still do an Amber Alert. Well, this dingbat, his story's been out there for half a week at least. If this story was verifiable, you bet it would have been verified by now by the Mounties. And the individual whose car that the children were supposedly loaded into would have been looked into. And you bet, with a car identified and a person identified, that there would now be an Amber Alert out for Jack and Lily. But there isn't, because this is all one big fictitious story. And I'm pretty certain that it would have fizzled out pretty quickly had it just been someone calling into this channel with a 4-hour live stream, because who's got the time to listen to something like that? 4 hours of listening to not a lot of much, just for 2 minutes worth of information. So this whole phone call would have fizzled out, except that Joseph Morris got hold of it and suddenly turned it into big news. Well, that's one hell of a coincidence, isn't it? Now, according to Joseph Morris, he can prove that this guy is legitimate, because apparently Belinda Gray verified it. Well, I can call BS on that quite confidently, for several reasons. First of all, the way this is written. If you watch the interview with Belinda Gray, you will see this is a highly educated woman. You can tell by the way she's speaking. I would imagine that a highly educated woman would be able to form correct English sentences and also understand simple punctuation. This is someone who understands grammar and punctuation quite clearly. You can tell from the way she speaks in her interviews. You can also tell when you look at her real posts on Facebook. So this text, or whatever it is, produced by Joseph Morris, proving that this dingbat guy is supposedly real, is a load of BS. Doesn't even read like a grammatically correct sentence. These are all legit as far as I have been told by Malaya, Daniel, and I know about Darren, who is related to Malaya when he stayed with Paddy. What? This was written by an 8-year-old, by the sounds of it. That was not written by a educated, eloquent, 60-something-year-old woman. And how does Daniel come into it anyway? Because we know that around the time that Meadow was born, Belinda was pretty much cut out of those two children's lives. Lily and Jack. That to me says that she probably never really had much of a relationship with Daniel, who would have seen her as, in some way, a threat because she is the mother of the father of those two older children. So I can't really see Daniel sharing much with her at all. Like I said, grammatically, yeah, it's a load of BS. You know what else tells me it's a load of BS? Because on the Facebook page, Darren is spelt with one R. Here, supposedly we have a message from Belinda Gray talking about him, not even spelling it the same way. And you could say, oh, well, she only met him, so she wouldn't know how he spelled his name. In which case, I would expect her to spell it the traditional way with an E, not an I. Because you don't see Darren spelt with an I. Like I said, this is an extremely educated woman. So she's either going to spell it correctly with one R and an I, or she's going to spell it the traditional way, D-A-R-R-E-N. Given all these people that supposedly know about this situation, given all these people that supposedly know exactly who it was that drove those children away from the property, given the time frame of what's gone by now, don't kid yourself. The Mounties would have put out an Amber Alert were this actually a true story. This is either some grifter, some dingbat who wants to get his 15 minutes of fame, and Joseph Morris has latched onto it and pushed it out and given it legs, or this is yet another Joseph Morris production. And as I said at the beginning of this video, the thing that makes this so disgusting is the fact that it is pushing this story that the children are definitely alive, giving people false hope. Because right now, nearly everything we know points to it being extremely likely that these children are no longer alive. In an interview that was done only a few days ago, we have the Mounties still saying there is no evidence of an abduction. All the information that we have points back to Daniel and Malaya. And their stories are similar enough to show you that those stories have been concocted together. Why would Daniel go along with a story like that and concoct a story like that with Malaya if she was being untruthful with him? And of course, like I said at the beginning, why would Malaya not just pack the kids off in the car and leave? She's done it before with the father of those children. This story is nothing more than someone trying to control the narrative, or someone trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. If it is someone trying to control the narrative, then the two people at the top of my list would be Joseph Morris and Daniel Martel. Obviously not working together, but it seems to me that Joseph Morris has grabbed this and run with it, And like I said, when he's all over something like this, straight away, that takes away so much credibility for me. But the question also that hovers there for me is, this is another story that is designed to make Malaya look like the villain here. Another story that is designed to take the focus off Daniel. Could this be a story created by Daniel for that express purpose? Because we've seen how much gaslighting he has done of Malaya from day one. It would certainly suit him for this story to be out there. This story just does not hold up to logical questioning and is connected and being perpetuated by one of the biggest grifters on YouTube. People need to become better critical thinkers. They need to be better at questioning things. They need to be better at applying logic. When a story like this comes up, if you cannot apply critical thinking and logic to it, and it still comes up squeaky clean, then you need to be seriously looking into where this story originated from and seeing if you can verify it independently. None of this fits with this story. It is pure fiction. So I'm going to finish off there. But like I said, I really wanted to discuss this because I know a lot of people have been latching onto this story and hanging onto it because it gives them hope that these children are alive and still out there, which I think is extremely cruel. Sadly, the chances of these children still being alive are very, very low. I think YouTube creators need to pull up their socks a bit. They need to lift their game and stop putting out unverified information. And certainly, if something comes out and you as a YouTube creator see that the number one person who is running with this unverified bit of information is Joseph Morris, then you need to turn tail and run the other way, because you can be pretty much guaranteed that it probably is a complete load of BS. So I'm going to finish there. Thank you for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. That helps me get these videos out there into the algorithm. And of course, please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.